Hi, book lovers. Welcome back to my channel. So, as you can see, I have two wonderful authors with me here today, Christina and Lauren from the author duo, Christina Lauren. I've been such a huge fan of you guys for a very long time, like since the Beautiful Bastard days. So, I've been reading you guys for a while. But I know you guys are on tour or just starting your tour for your new release, right?
Yep.
So we'll talk about your new releases before getting into everything else. You have two books out this year, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy but awesome. So how is your tour going so far for Tangled Up in You?
Well, today is the first. I'm Lauren, by the way. Today is the first stop. So the book is out tomorrow. So we're having a pre-launch event in Salt Lake City with the King's English Bookshop, and so hopefully it's good. I literally just flew into town today, so it's so far so good. But yeah, it's just getting started.
Yes, it's a whole entang.
It occurred to me we haven't really talked about this book yet.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, tell us what it's about for those who haven't heard about it or anything.
So it's a contemporary retelling of the movie Tangled, the Disney movie Tangled. And in this world, it's like in our world. So there's no magic, but it's the sort of characteristics and Easter eggs that you would get from a Disney retelling. And it's a story about a woman named Wren who's been raised on a homestead, and she finally convinces her parents to let her go away to college. Her first time kind of in society with technology and groups of people. And while taking a science class, she makes a discovery that could have a big impact on everything she's ever known about her life. And so she blackmails our hero, Fitz, into taking her along on a road trip across the country to find answers. And so, yeah, hopefully it'll feel familiar to people who love Tangled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How was the experience writing a Tangled retelling? Did you got to work with Disney on this?
Yeah, it was really fun. They first approached us in 17 or something. Yeah. We met with Jocelyn Davies, who's our editor, at San Diego Comic-Con, and she first talked to us about it. But at the time, we didn't really have an idea because there's no magic. It has to exist in the contemporary world. And at its heart, if you look at Tangled, it's just this sort of sheltered young girl and this sort of playboy. And so we wanted to find a story that took that but built on it. And so last year we had this idea about a road trip, which essentially, kind of happens in the movie. And it's funny because it looks a lot like we envisioned it. Tangled is one of our absolute favorite movies. It is a rom-com. It's like Romancing the Stone or something. And so we wrote this book and we love it so much.
Were you blasting the Tangled playlist while you were writing it?
No, but I think because we did watch we've both seen the movie a million times, and we watched it of course a few more times when we first started outlining and writing and during the writing process. So I always had the soundtrack looping through my head. And it's funny because the very first song, When Will My Life Begin, that has a certain cadence that when I sing it in the house, my husband is like, stop, because I guess when he's on a mountain bike ride, it gets stuck in his head while he's pedaling, and it drives him crazy, which I just think is hilarious. So
it's definitely a song that gets stuck in your head for sure.
Yeah, it's an earworm for sure.
So tomorrow's release day. Do you guys usually do anything to celebrate? Do you actually know what book number this is going to be for you?
Yeah, so this is our 31st published book. That doesn't include our short story with Amazon that we had out in January. So this is number 31, and we don't really have any traditions on release day just because release days are different every year or every book. So I don't know.
We usually send our publisher cupcakes, and I almost always do book birthday nails. So this year I have
Tangled colors.
Cute.
Yes. So it's like a weird superstitious thing. I don't understand it.
No, I love it. So the Paradise Problem was number 30, right?
Mm-hmm.
The big 30. Okay, that one I actually have read, and I freaking adored it.
Oh, thank
It
you.
was so cute. So for this book, what made you guys what was the inspiration behind it? I know you've written Marriage of Convenience before and Roomies, which I also loved. But what made you decide to go back to this trope and write it in a whole new, unique way?
So Paradise Problem has had many lives. It originally began as like we had this idea. It was going to be a holiday book, and it was about this couple who fell in love and had this kind of whirlwind romance, and it just kind of like they had problems. They ended up getting a divorce. His family didn't like hers, and he moves away. And one year for Christmas, his mom is like, "This is probably your grandmother's last year, Christmas. We're all coming to your house. Tell your wife." And he
has never told them that they got
he
divorced.
has never told them. So he has got to go to his ex-wife and convince her to pretend that they're still married. And so the problem with that is it's not really fun to write to people who are divorced if they really love each other. It was kind of sad. So we wrote about 30,000 words and got rid of them, wrote about 30,000 words, got rid of them. And as soon as we figured out like who Anna was and had the idea for the wedding on the island, the stories started to come together. But we had to like start from scratch and basically rename our characters. And it came together pretty fast.
So it changed from a holiday winter romance to a summery beach read then. Yeah.
Yes,
what was your favorite scene to write in the Paradise Problem?
Oh man. I mean, I really love the scene when they're on the plane. I love the scene when Liam first shows up at her apartment and she's high on a gummy and she's
Yeah.
I love that one. And the kayaking scene, I think. Yeah.
So Lo drafted that book, and so I got to come in behind her, and the scene where he like comes to her house for the first time just made me laugh so hard. He's not sure if he's in the right place. They know each other, but they don't like know each other. So he has a moment where he is a little like, are you Anna? And I loved it so much. I laughed so hard. And then the scene where they have to kiss on the deck, I loved it so much. So much. It was just like so insanely sexy.
I'm curious, if you guys were Anna, like back in college, would you also agree to a whole Marriage of Convenience with a billionaire heir?
I totally
For
would.
campus housing?
He doesn't even know that she doesn't even know that he's rich when she agrees to do
Right.
that. She just does it for the cheap housing. And in fact, when I was in graduate school, my now husband and I so all you needed to show for graduate student housing was a marriage certificate. You didn't have to show didn't have to be signed. You didn't have to have proof that you'd actually gotten married. So you could just go down to the county clerk's office, apply for the license, right? You just need to show them the license and just say, hey, we're going to get married. Can we move in? So my husband and I were just dating at the time. And so we did that. And then we got married, a couple of years later. But there were so many of my friends who pretended like they were going to get married so they could live together in grad student housing.
I probably
Was
wouldn't have a rule follower.
No,
I don't even like.
You would have, because everybody did it. It was like such a non.
Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't like.
Was that how you got the idea for this book then?
Yeah.
Like your own?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you guys have written a lot of books by now. Does it ever become difficult to come up with like a romance or come up with characters that feel unique to you every single time? Something that's different from your previous books?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we sometimes have too many ideas of things that we want to do all at once. So our limiting factor is always time. But I think we also have had enough experience writing books that aren't working and then having to kind of start over, that we also know that sometimes an idea seems really great, but it doesn't always work out. So I think we struggle less with coming up with ideas and more with coming up with the right idea at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's every author's issue. Like there's a lot of books that you have a concept for, or there's this, especially in romance, there might be a certain trope that somebody wants to write, but that's not enough to carry the whole story. And so I think for us, sometimes it's just making sure we have enough there so that it feels like a full book, you know?
So speaking of ideas, is the holiday idea still maybe happening, but with a different story?
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to do it for like a short story or something.
Yeah.
It would be really fun because I feel like you can just get away with more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So also, the problem with holiday books is that people buy them for a short period of time. So if it's like your one book for the year, you want people to enjoy it all year long. So it might actually be great for like a short thing.
A little short story.
Yeah. Because we had so many ways to make it funny. We had a title.
Yeah.
We had everything. So, because it's their bed. Like, there's only one bed, but it's complicated.
How do you complicate, even more complicate only one bed trope?
Well, if they used to share that bed and they don't share it anymore,
Yep.
I think only one bed usually happens with people who don't know each other or aren't together. And it's like, oops, look at us for cuddling, but if it's a bed that used to be a marital bed, I think it's a lot more loaded. So.
Yes. So who is your favorite hero that you've written so far? The one that, if you were single, that you would marry in a heartbeat if he were real?
I mean, I have ones that, so when we were writing Sweet Filthy Boy, I was so obsessed with Ansel, but I think Ansel would probably kill me. I don't think I could handle that. and I always, Will from Beautiful Player, he's so amazing. I don't know, he seems a little more realistic than Ansel.
I don't know that you could keep up with
I don't know if I could keep up with Will either. I'm just saying, I could not handle Ansel, that's for sure.
I could see you marrying Max, like a Max or a Josh, or a kind of mellower,
I need somebody who enables me.
Yeah.
So Josh would probably
Yeah. I would probably marry Oliver from Dark Wild Night, or I don't know, they're all pretty great, but
I think you'd date Elliot, but I don't know if you'd marry.
Elliot, I think, would just have too many emotions for me. I would be like, calm down. I love it. That's my favorite book, but I feel like he would be a lot. But yeah, I think probably Oliver.
Mm-hmm. Mine 100% is Will. I love that man so much.
He's a lot, man. You gotta.
He is. He's a spicy boy. But speaking of love in other words, I know you guys are basically the reigning queens of rom-com right now, but would you ever go back to write something a little bit more emotional like Love in Other Words?
In fact, our book that comes out next year is a lot like Love in Other Words in tone. So, yes.
Ooh. Is there anything you can share about the next release?
It does have a then and now storyline. It has childhood rivals to lovers to strangers to friends to lovers. And it's really been fun. We sort of created a fictional lakeside town in Minnesota, and it was really fun sort of creating these rivals, the two students, vying for valedictorian, who are the only two people who really understand what it's like to be really smart in a super small town where there's a lot of attention and pride and focus on you. So yeah, that one has been tricky just because we are really used to writing rom-coms, and that is a voice that comes very naturally to us. And so we've really had to work a lot to find the right tone and voice for this one, but it's been a good challenge. It's been a really fun book to work on. So.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a release date for it yet?
It's next May, but I don't know. I think it's probably May 13th is my guess. That we usually go the second Tuesday of May, but we'll see.
So one of my favorite questions to ask romance authors is if you remember the first romance book that you ever read and fell in love with.
I think I don't know if it was the first one I ever read, but it's the first one I remember is Palomino by Danielle Steele. It had this kind of creamy white cover and this gold lettering, and just the idea of a Palomino horse felt so escapist and windswept. And, her books were very kind of escapist, beach ready. And it was not what my family was reading. My dad read really big fantasy novels. My mom was literary fiction. My sister was reading Stephen King. And so I was this little, outsider reading these romance books, but I loved them.
I used to say the thorn birds, but I had a realization like this year that the first book that made me really look at something that wasn't necessarily romance, but made me see the world differently was Elvis and Me. When that book came out, I thought it was just like, my aunt let me read it when I was staying with her. And it was just the most romantic thing to 12-year-old Christina, that this 14-year-old girl would fall in love with Elvis, and he would fall in love with her. And then the TV miniseries came out, and I was just absolutely obsessed. I was calling radio stations. I'm really dating myself now and requesting Elvis songs and stuff. Even though adult Christina is wow, what a problematic relationship. But
right.
12-year-old me, that just was the epitome of so romantic.
So these were the books that got you hooked onto romance, the whole romance genre?
Yeah.
I think that's the one that made me realize romance as a thing, the act of falling in love and being obsessed with somebody.
Yeah. But I will say, I think, soap operas were a big part of my romance origin story. I really loved watching soaps when I was younger. And then when I was in college and then graduate school, I really wasn't reading for fun as much. So I think when I came back to romance, fan fiction, and then YA authors like Steph Perkins and Laini Taylor and Jandy Nelson, they really kind of got me back into reading romance for fun. So I feel like I had two phases where it was sort of early stuff with Danielle Steele and Sweet Valley High and soap operas. And then I kind of came back in my 20s and 30s.
Yeah, I would say that too. When I discovered Twilight, when I was in my 30s, I was like, what is this? Mm-hmm. And people are writing fan fiction. What is fan fiction? I can just write stories because I want to. And so that was it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And fan fiction was your origin, writing story, right? Author story, right?
For me, yeah. Lo has written her entire life.
Yeah, but it's always been fan fiction. Yeah.
Yeah, she just didn't know it was fan fiction at the time.
Really? What was the first fanfic that you wrote then?
I wrote stories in my notebooks about Days of Our Lives characters. And so Jack and Jennifer or Patch and Kayla or, Shane and Kimberly, I would write stories about them, just more time. Because, with soap operas, you don't always they have such a huge cast. You don't always get the characters you want in every episode. And so you might wait all day to watch the episode and you don't even get to see the couple that you love, And so I remember whenever I felt like I wasn't getting enough, I would write more of their story on my own.
Do you ever still read fan fiction? Have you ever read fanfic of your own books?
No, we have not read fanfic of our own books. I still read fic occasionally, but we don't have a ton of time to read fan fiction as much as we would probably like to, just because we have a lot of books sent to us to read that are kind of for work. But yeah, sometimes somebody will send us a story and be like, you have to read this. Yeah. And then we both
It depends if we're knee deep in a fandom at the time. If I was back in when Hunger Games was my favorite thing, I would be reading Hunger Games fic, So it's we're just obsessive fangirls. So it's whatever is our obsession at the
Except
time.
We're into BTS, but we don't read BTS fic, right? Yeah. So if it's a real person like Harry Styles or, BTS, we're not going to go read fanfic about them, but yeah. If it's book related.
I love House of Dragons and stuff. When the first season was on, I was oh, I like dragons. Mm-hmm. So I could see going and looking at House of the Dragon, fan fiction, but I've just never had time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Since you said that you get sent a lot of books to read, are there any exciting books that you have on your TBR right now, or anything you've read recently so far that you loved?
Yeah, I really loved Between Friends and Lovers by Shirlene Obobe. That comes out in July. And I've really loved Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto. That comes out also in July. And I haven't read Not in Love yet by Allie Hazelwood, but I know that just came out. She used to so we always get her books early because she's a good friend of ours, but she was such a little brat with this one and she wouldn't send any of her friends the book. And so I just haven't had time to read it since it came out. But I wasn't able to get it until release day, which is makes me realize how lucky I am that I can usually get whatever book I want.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those two are probably
We got Jandy Nelson's next book, and The Sky is Everywhere is one of the books that really, like that, and like Lo mentioned, Steph Perkins, Anna and the French Kiss. Those were the books that made us really want to write. Like we wanted to write books that made people feel that way. So I just got that on my Kindle.
Good.
So I'm excited to read it.
Yeah.
I also still need to read Non-Love. I have an arc, but I just never got to it.
Yeah. I mean, the nice thing is about books is they'll still be there when you're ready for them. And that's kind of what I'm doing now is like, I never read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by Victoria Schwab. And so when I was on vacation last week, I took that with me. And I mean, it's a long book, so I haven't finished it yet. But it's kind of nice sometimes to remember that like the big books that everybody's obsessed with, that everybody loves, like you can read them when you have time to really fall into it. And so, Not in Love will be there whenever you're ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
We see Allie tomorrow, though, so I'm going to shame her into sending us her next one.
Yes.
Do you have any all-time favorite authors, like auto-buy authors you would just read anything and everything from?
Yeah, we have so many. I mean, Allie is one for sure. We love Sally Thorne. I love Tiffany Rice. She's writing as Meg Schaefer now. She has a couple of Lit Fit books. One is coming out soon. One came out last year. I really love her writing. Sarah McLean, Kate Claiborne. I'll read anything she writes. I love Rosie Dannon. I love Julie Soto.
Nikki Payne.
Oh, yes. So, I mean, there's a lot of really Regina Black. She wrote The Art of Scandal. And I just recently listened to it on audio. I had read it before when it came out, and it's so good. So, yeah, I mean, I think romance is a genre that is just sort of an embarrassment of riches as far as talent goes. So, I mean, I have so many auto-buy authors that it's quite a large expense. So
I'm in summer is when, so I read a lot of thrillers, and summer is when like all of my like auto-buy authors, their books come out. So like Riley Sager and Peter Swanson, Sherry LaPena, Samantha Downing, like those books all come out within like a little tiny thing. So usually I always get to do them like when we're on book tour and stuff. So I'm very, very happy. I just got Leigh Bardugo's new one too yesterday when I was at the King's English.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of summer, which of your characters would you want to go on a tropical vacation with?
Oh my God, Anna would be super fun from
Yeah, I think I would want to go on a girls' trip with Hazel, Fizzy, and Jess, probably. And Anna.
They would be so fun.
Yeah.
Just get up to no good.
Yeah.
Yes. I want to be like 50's best friend.
Definitely a girls' trip.
Yes.
For those who have read The Paradise Problem, are there any other beachy reads of yours or maybe other books that you would recommend them to read afterwards?
I mean, the Unhoneymooners is kind of our classic beach read book. But I also think The Soulmate Equation and True Love Experiment are good beach reads because they go together really well. And I think that Jess and Fizzy have such a fun, like, dynamic. But I mean, honestly, if you want a great beachy read feel, I think there's always room for like good steamy reads. So I think The Wild Seasons, which starts with Sweet Filthy Boy, Dirty Rowdy Thing, Dark Wild Night, and Wicked Sexy Liar, I think those would be great to take on vacation because they're super escapist.
Yeah. When I was on vacation 2 weeks ago, and I read One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. And it is essentially if you took like True Love Experiment and put murder in it. It takes place on a tropical island, and it was really fun. I tore through it.
I can't wait to read that one. That's next up for me.
Nice. Would you guys ever write a thriller, since you guys seem to really like reading the genre?
Yeah, we have an idea. We just have to carve out time for it.
Mm-hmm. Would you ever write anything that's not contemporary? I remember you wrote like a YA sort of fantasy. Mm-hmm. Yes. Would you ever write more?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a couple ideas for stuff.
Yeah.
Would it be like high fantasy or something more mystical?
Probably more paranormal-y. I mean, that's sort of where we came from. You know, we came from the Twilight fandom, so we've been in that space a long time. So I think we would like to go back to our roots and write some paranormal stuff.
Mm-hmm. If you could revisit an old couple of yours, maybe write a bonus scene for them, something, looking into their future, who would it be and why?
When we finished Wicked Sexy Liar, that's the last book in the Wild Season series, I think that we were both like, oh, I'm not ready to be done with this book. And they're so deeply like romantic and obsessed with each other. I would love to know like what they're doing now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. I think I'd like to see Josh and Hazel in the future a little bit, just because at the end of their book, this is a spoiler, so if you haven't read that book, just cover your ears or fast forward for 15 seconds. But they have a family. And so it's like you don't get to see them kind of in that honeymoon period where they're just like so crazy in love and like can't keep their hands off each other. And so I think I would like to be able to like see them take a belated honeymoon or something, and just the two of them.
That would be a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Will you guys be at any like big book signings or book conventions this year?
We'll be at Steamy LitCon.
Mm-hmm. San Diego Comic-Con, Steamy LitCon, and then we're doing Romance Writers of Australia down in Australia in Adelaide.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we're going to have a pretty quiet fall. We're going to take it easy, and relax.
Last fall was crazy. Last year we went to France and Germany and
then
Mexico.
You went to Mexico.
So this fall it's going to be more quiet.
Well, I'm excited to see you guys at Steamy Lit. I will be there.
It's going to be awesome.
Yes, I know. I'm honestly so thankful to have like a local SoCal signing for me. I'm always having to fly over to the East Coast.
I know. Yeah, it's really convenient. It's like such a great area too.
Let's see. What are you looking forward to the most this year? It could be something book related or non-book related.
I mean, I just got back from Maui and I was really looking forward to that for a long time because I planned that trip forever ago. But I mean, I'm excited for this book tour. We love seeing readers. And I'm excited to go back to Australia in August. I know it's not Christina's favorite place. She got really sick the last time we were there, but I'm excited. I think it's going to be fun.
I am very excited this year to go to Comic-Con because I'm hoping we can get in, if they're there, if House of the Dragon is in Hall H this year. I'm hoping to do that. And then Lo has a big birthday party this year I'm very excited for.
Ooh. Okay, so you've written a bunch of different tropes over the many years you've been writing. Has there been, like, what's your favorite trope that you've written so far? One that you would never get tired of writing?
I love friends to lovers. I love that moment where one of them realizes that it's more and you kind of can't wait for the other one to realize it too. I feel like that's such a fun tension. And you can really get to know somebody in a totally different but intimate way when you're just friends. That makes you kind of, that like when you meet somebody at a bar and you start dating or whatever, you don't have the same sort of openness and like honesty, I think, about like I'm just who I am. Sometimes you kind of try and be someone else. So I think there's like a visibility and a transparency in friends to lovers that I really love writing.
I love enemies to lovers just because it's really easy to be funny doing enemies to lovers, and I like funny books. But it's really hard to get it right. Like, are they really enemies? So, and I think that that's getting a little harder to do. So, because sometimes, you're reading a book and you're like, these people, they're fine. It would take one conversation, but I like people who are sarcastic and snappy with each other. We always say that it's easy to be funny when you can be a little mean.
Yes. I'm more of a friends to lovers girl. I love that whole foundation. I love when characters have history together.
Yeah.
And you guys have some really good friends to lovers romances too.
Thank you. Yeah, they're fun to write. I really do love them.
Yeah.
So what is a typical writing schedule for you guys? You have a set schedule, or do you write when you can? Like, how much do you write before you send off to the other person?
So we usually write at the same time. But I mean, it's our full-time job. So I get up, I have breakfast, I go for a walk, I do whatever, and then I work. I sit down at my desk or I stand at my desk and I work until whatever I need to get done that day is done. So our process for writing each book is sort of just depends. Sometimes we write it in tandem. Sometimes one of us drafts and the other edits. It just sort of depends on the book, our schedule, whatever. We've written a book together every possible way you can co-write. So we've sort of learned that like, no matter what we do, it always ends up as a Christina Lauren book in the end, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I try to be in my office by like 9, just like a normal working person, you know? So, and if we're going to do something, usually we'll be like, hey, I have a doctor appointment, or, you know, we try to be around. So if the other has a question and stuff, and usually we're writing, like when it comes to like when we send stuff, if we have a question, we just like pop it in our text box, you know, all the time. I think I talk to Lo more than I talk to my husband. I definitely talk to Lo more than I talk to my husband.
Do you have anything that you like have to have while you write, like music or coffee, things like that?
No, I used to have to always have a playlist, but like this last book, I didn't write with a playlist really. And so I realized I don't need music. I just enjoy it. But it has to be kind of music I can tune out after a while. But I think it's really dangerous to tie writing habits to food or drinks, just because if you tie certain habits into work habits, it's really hard to break them apart, especially when it's food. Like I know people have, you know, M&Ms or crackers or something as a writing snack, and then it's sort of like you can't write without them, and it's just not a super healthy attitude. So we've learned to not do that over the last 11 years. You know, we just figured out it doesn't work for us.
I used to always have like Cheez-Its or M&Ms on my desk, and then one day I left my office and I came back and my little Yorkie was like walking on my desk on my keyboard, and he had like tweeted a bunch of stuff. And it's because he used to know there was always food on there. So as soon as I left, he was like right up there. I usually have to be in my office. I need quiet. I have focus issues. So I have to be, you know, it has to be quiet for me.
Mm-hmm.
We stay and write on the road, and it just like never happens.
I don't do that anymore. I know we're not going to write on the road.
Would you guys ever write with a third person? Like maybe do a co-write with another person? With another
probably not. I think maybe it would have to look really different than what we do. I think we are very lucky that our personalities mesh well. And so much of that is about being complementary personalities and the balance of our, you know, intensity and our whatever. So I think, you know, it's really hard to find that. And I mean, I think if we had a really good idea and we knew exactly what we were going to do, we might try it, but I don't think it's something that we're like searching for. You know, it's a little bit, I mean, it is a little bit like a marriage in a way. It's like a creative marriage, and it's like, you know, bringing in a third person is tricky in a lot of ways. So yeah.
Going back to the novella that you wrote back in January, which was actually, you have 3 releases this year. I totally forgot, but I loved that novella so much. Like I love audiobooks, and that story was the cutest thing ever. The whole epistolary romance. Like, where did you come up with that idea?
Honestly, I don't even know. Like, I think it was just, we were talking about, you know, what we wanted to do. We were asked to do the idea of the whole series is a sort of improbable meet cute. So like things that are so far out there that don't happen very often. Like you're not just walking into a restaurant and meeting somebody. You're like things that you just wouldn't normally happen. And so the idea of sending an email that you mean to send to a teacher, and then it ends up going to like another kid at your, in the district. But then you kind of create this relationship around it. I don't know. It just sort of took off. I mean, I think we wrote it in like 4 days. So it was a very fast, fun little one-off project. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Would you ever write something similar again, like another novella?
Yeah, for sure. We really loved writing short stories. I mean, I think it's like, it's very satisfying because it's like, you can tell different kinds of stories in that format that are like, you know, she was talking about doing the Christmas divorce book. And like, that is harder to do in a novel because you really have to build this whole backstory. But in a short story, you can do a lot of shorthand things and make it kind of just like a lighter, sort of smaller
It kind of reminds me of fic in a way that, like, when you go into fic, one of the awesome things is that you sort of like go in knowing I'm not going to get everything told to me. I just kind of have to go with it. And I feel like short stories are sort of like that. And it's just fun to do something different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You guys have also been writing a lot more college-y romances too. Do you have a preference for writing new adult versus adult?
I mean, I think Disney, the Disney one is, and maybe exception to the rule, that was, you know, sort of the school thing worked because that's how they started. And I think Tangled Up in You, it works that they're finishing college because we want the characters to still have that youthful feel that Tangled has. I mean, even though the Meant to Be series takes place in our world, Rapunzel / Ren in particular, she really has to feel young at heart. And it's just harder to do that with adult characters. With a 30-year-old woman, it would be really hard to kind of capture that fresh playfulness that Rapunzel has in Tangled. So that's why we did that one. But I think in general, we like our characters to be like late 20s to like late 30s.
Yeah. I think it just depends on their situation. Like Ren just had to be young.
Yeah.
You know, exception to the rule, they had to be young because it's, you know, they're finishing school and we see that and the email thing. So it just really depends. Like, you know, Fizzy in True Love Experiment, she's just at this point in her life where her parents are starting to be like, are you getting married? And all of these things. And she's questioning, and now she's struggling with writing. And, you know, so it really just depends. I don't think we ever set out to be like, let's write somebody who is 35 or let's write somebody who's 25. It all just comes with the idea.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned your next release. Is that one all like finished up? You're done writing it? What are you working on right now?
So we are editing that one. We just got our edit letter. So we'll spend July revising that. And then after that, we have another book that's like a third of the way done. That we'll finish, and then we get to play for a little while. We're probably just going to write a couple of pet projects that we haven't had time for. So yeah.
Would you write like another sort of standalone series like Beautiful Bastard or The Wild Seasons, or do you think you're sticking to more standalones this time?
I mean, we put, you know, True Love Experiment is a companion novel for Soulmate Equation, and it was really fun to kind of go back to that world and see those characters again. So it's not ever our intent to leave a world entirely. We just it has to be something that we feel like we want to mine more out of that world or those characters or those circumstances or whatever. So I think, we would love to write another series. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know you guys are on a time crunch, so I think I'll just do one more question. So what's something that you're most excited for people to read in Tangled Up in You, since it's out tomorrow?
There's a hot tub scene that's pretty great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I also love the scene. I love the scene in the Screaming Eagle, which is this like this bar they go to. It's sort of supposed to be like a little nod to the Ugly Duckling. And it is, or is it Fuzzy Duckling?
No, I don't know actually.
I
don't know.
That's so funny. I just completely blanked on what it is in the movie. But anyway, it's called the Screaming Eagle in the book, and that scene is really funny.
It just has everything. It's the first love, and he is just this sort of wounded boy that puts up a wall, and she just like kind of breaks it down, and it's just so wonderful that when he like falls, he falls hard, and it's never happened to him before. Yeah, and I just love that kind of stuff. Yeah, we basically wrote the book we wanted to read.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. I'm excited. Sounds so adorable. I can't wait.
I hope you love it.
Yeah, me too. Okay. Is there anything else you guys wanted to share before we wrap this up?
No, we're good. Thank you for doing this.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Christina and Lo, for joining us. Hopefully everyone will be able to read this by the time I post this, which, this should be out by the time I post this video. Be sure to also grab Paradise Problem too, because it was amazing. And thank you guys so much for being here with me today. It was so much fun chatting with you.
It was really fun. Thanks, Lacey.
Yes. Enjoy the rest of your tour, or the start of your tour.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yep. Bye.